It's a whole lot to unpack. A lot of things that are happening right now. And before we went came on the air today, certainly got some sad news with the passing of Claudette Colvin. She, of course, the black woman who sat down on a bus, and she, of course, was told, "You got to get up." And this took place before what happened with Rosa Parks. And there were all sorts of folks talking about, well, why wasn't she the face of the movement? Was it because she was so young? It was all those different things along those lines. She passed away today, again, the age of 86 years old. And it was, but do understand, if you read Joanne Robinson's book of the women who led the Montgomery Bus Boycott, you will realize that there were others who sat down before Claudette Colvin. And so all of those cases built up frustration and anger in Montgomery that led to the Montgomery Bus Boycott. We just celebrated, of course, the anniversary just the other day of the Montgomery Bus Boycott. But Claudette Colvin goes down as one of our foot soldiers, history maker. When I sat down with Fred Gray was her attorney in that case. And he explained to us the backstory of what happened with Claudette Colvin, and we're gonna show that for you. It really was a fascinating story, Randy. Listening to him describe for us what really took place with Claudette Colvin, the legal maneuvering that took place as well. Again, she passed away at the age of 86. Certainly one of our history makers.
As I was reading more about her, and I've always, of course, known about her, but what is interesting is that we didn't learn about her in school. And so I was impressed with the ability of hers to just be quiet, be an unsung hero. I mean, it had to be something where here she was 15 years old, even though her friend decided to go ahead and move out of the spot they asked her to move out of. She stayed at 15 years old, and she wasn't chosen to be the face. I mean, she did this 9 months before Rosa Parks. She wasn't chosen to be the face for various reasons, including colorism. We have to be real about that. But she was okay, and she was okay with that and was just fine to do her part. Right now you have so many of us that want accolades for standing up, and we have to realize that so many people sacrifice to get us where we are today. So absolutely have great respect and regard for her.
When we talked to Fred, and according to Fred, none of that actually was the case. He actually said that he said his whole job was like, let's make sure she don't go to jail. So he addressed a lot of that backstory in terms of why at that moment, why didn't her case become the case, Mustafa? But as I said, if you read Joanne Robinson's book, there were incidents that happened to other men and women even before Claudette Colvin. And so when you look at all of those together, it was a buildup. It was a buildup. It was a steady buildup in Montgomery. And then when Rosa Parks got arrested, that's when the powder keg just blew, and they said, enough. We're tired of sitting here and waiting, because a lot of people don't realize, Mustafa, a few days after the Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954, Joanne Robinson sent a letter to the bus company about desegregating their buses. And so this battle had been brewing, but Claudette Colvin is certainly a significant part of this unique American history.
Yeah, she most definitely was a freedom fighter. Huge amount of courage. When you think about someone who was only 15 years old and all the pressure that you had to deal with at that time because of segregation, because of the violence that was going on, and for her still to be able to do what was necessary in that moment and to do it with courage is something that we should continue to embrace, continue to look at and build upon, because we are in somewhat similar situations right now. I've written about, how folks actually created their own taxi systems and how they, made sure that folks could get to the places that they needed to go to make sure that the boycott actually worked. And we often don't highlight our sisters enough who have played such an amazing role in the civil rights movement and, gave and continue to give even to today. So We love and honor Miss Colvin and all those others who sacrificed so much, but we have a responsibility also in this moment to not only take those lessons, but to make sure that we are actually applying them against, a regime that is, in many instances, as devastating as the ones that folks dealt with in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s.
Larry.
Yeah, Roland, certainly want to send, let her family know we certainly mourn her. One of the things I want to talk about, Roland, is not talked about enough, is that when we lose icons, civil rights icons like this, I think people forget in terms of where we are with history. They think this, some of these things obviously happened years or decades ago, but a lot of these people that, laid the foundation, some of we don't know the names of, are still living with us. So it's really important, the context in terms of what we're dealing with today, in terms of, the government, the federal, state level, trying to resegregate and prevent Black people from opportunities, is a reminder that these individuals are still living amongst us, and that we have to continue to fight and also use the examples of those in the past to continue to fight to make sure that Black folks have the kind of economic, political, and social opportunities that we gained just over the last 20 to 30 years.
Well, a few years ago when I interviewed Fred Gray, found out that he was actually her attorney. And so Fred told us the backstory of what happened with Claudette Colvin's arrest. Here's what he had to say.
So you had people who got arrested 1 or 2 times. We knew about Claudette Colvin, the 15-year-old girl who did what Mrs. Parks did, but did it 9 months before without any instructions and any prodding or any encouragement. She just thought it was wrong after she had been studying Black history, incidentally, the week before. But I represented her, and she was my first civil rights case. And when I lost her case before Judge Hill in the juvenile court, where they found her to be a delinquent and then placed her on unsupervised probation, which was saying nothing, I tried to get the judge and tried to tell him that what they were trying to do was to enforce the segregation laws, but he wouldn't listen to me. He still found her guilty. So what we did, Joanne had that, and she had gotten the leaders in Montgomery, and E.D. Nixon was the Mr. Civil Rights involved. And after that, she was convicted. Had a meeting with the city officials about it. They said, well, we're sorry what happened to that girl, but it won't happen again. Later, then Rosa Parks' case came up on December 1st. Well, I knew her from my earlier days. And on the day of her arrest, we had had one of our conferences that we had had for about a year since I started practicing. And we have been talking about what you should do if you are arrested on the buses. I was going out of town that afternoon, and we had ended our little conference. So when I got back, I had phone calls from Mrs. Parks and a lot of other folks telling me that Ms. Parks had been arrested and she wanted to see me. I called her and she told me to come over to her house. This was in the afternoon of December 5th. I went by and talked to Ms. Parks. She told me what happened, and she said, my case is set for trial for 8:30 Monday morning, December 5th. That's just 3 days away. This is Thursday evening. Mm-hmm. She retained me to represent her. I said, fine, Ms. Parks, don't worry about your case. But let me tell you this, she said, Joanne Robinson has been talking about for some time, and particularly since Claudette Colvin's case, that people ought to stay off of the bus as a unified effort to let them know we mean business. And I said, I'm going to talk to her and see, I think if we're going to ever do that, you're doing what you have done is enough, so you don't need to get involved in any of the rest of this. You just go on, take it easy, and I'm going to talk with you again between now and Monday. I said, but I'm going to go and talk to Mr. Nixon, who has a majority of the Black people following him, and he had signed her bond to get her out. I went a few blocks to Mr. Nixon's house, talked to him. He was a Pullman car porter. Mr. Nixon was not an educated man, but he was a well-elevated man. And he was a man who didn't believe in a whole lot of planning, but he did action. He said, and I told him, I said, well, you know, Joanne has been talking about getting these people to stay off the buses. He said, well, you all go ahead, talk about it. Let me know what you want me to do, and I'll support it. I go to Joanne Robinson's house. She lives on the other side of town, not far from Alabama State. We sat down in Joanne's living room, the two of us, and made the plans for the Montgomery Bus Boycott. It couldn't come out that either one of us were doing it because she was employed by the state as an employee at Alabama State. I was a lawyer just admitted to the bar a year, and if I'm not careful, they'll disbar me like they had disbarred another lawyer not too much earlier. So I knew, without saying to anybody, that I had to be very careful what we do and how we do it. She said, Fred, what we need to do is sit down and decide how we can get these people to stay off the buses. And I'm going to prepare a leaflet that says another black woman has been off the bus and her trial is going to be on Monday. But we want them to stay off after Monday. I said, well, Joan, if that's true, then we're going to have to make plans. Suppose they stay off, then we're going to have to be prepared to go further. I said, fine. Well, this is what we decided we had to do. One, if that's going to happen, number one, you're going to need a spokesman, because somebody's going to have to speak for these black folks and not them try to speak all for themselves. In addition to a spokesman, if we're going to keep them off the bus, we got to somehow raise some money to take care of the expenses. And we're going to have to get somebody to plan a system of getting folks to and from wherever they are going. Normally, Mr. E.D. Nixon would have been the head, whatever you call him, because he had more followers than anybody else. But Rufus Lewis, who was a former coach at Alabama State, also had some followers. He was concerned primarily about registration and getting people admitted to when they are elected, they must be responsible. He ran also a nightclub called the Citizens Club. And guess what? In order to get in there, you had to be a registered voter. So I said, we need to find, so these two people, which one are we going to use? Joanne said, neither one. Said, use my pastor. Martin Luther King, haven't been here long, haven't been involved in civil rights activities or no other activities other than his church. But one thing he can do, he can move people with words. I said, that's what we need.
Now, had you met him by that point? Had you met Dr. King by that point?
I had met him, yes. I had met him, but I didn't know him. I wasn't a member of his church.
Did you think it was a good idea?
I told her, I agree with you. And then I said, Joanne, let me give you a suggestion for these other two men, because we need them because they have supporters. Martin doesn't have anything but the few people who had Dexter. I says, let's make E.D. Nixon treasurer, because he's a Pullman car puller and you know A. Philip Randolph in New York, and he'll raise some money to help these black folks. What we're going to do with Rufus Lewis, thanks to his wife. His wife is half owner of Ross Clayton Funeral Home, the largest funeral home for blacks in Montgomery then and still is. And they have cars. We need cars to transport people, and they have somebody who drives those cars. So make him chairman of the transportation committee. And then you're going to, believe it or not, you're going to need something else. You're going to need a lawyer. So here am I, send me. Those were the plans that we made. Martin to be, Dr. King to be the chair. the spokesman is what we call them, Mr. Nixon, the treasurer, Rufus Lewis, chairman of the Transportation Committee, and Fred Gray was legal for doing the legal adversion part. Our responsibility was to get that word out to other people so that when the official meeting took place at Mount Zion AME Church, Dr. King was selected chairman before he got to the meeting. Rufus Lewis was elected chairman of the Transportation Committee. And of course, Mr. Nixon was selected as treasurer, and Fred Gray had the responsibility of doing the legal work. And that seed was planted and passed on to other people. And when other people made the motions in the meeting, they didn't know where it came from originally. Some of them even thought they originated it themselves.
And I take it you and Joanne shot each other looks like.
Well, what happened when we won, when the buses started running Monday morning and black folks went on it, we both know that was good. Then we knew we had to go and have Miss Parks' case. Well, I knew they weren't gonna find her not guilty. So I knew it was gonna take care of all a bit of about 15 or 20 minutes for her case, because I wasn't gonna put on case. I was gonna prepare and reserve my motions. And we're gonna appeal the case, and then these people can go and have these official meetings that they need to have and meet at Holt Street Baptist Church. And when they met and when they heard Dr. King, and when Joanne and I sat there and listened, we looked at each other and said, well, Fred, and she said, well, Joanne, I think it worked. And it did. So if we're going to work today, and then all of these people got together and stayed off of the buses for 382 days, we don't get out there and try to do it by yourself. You need to be able to get somebody else, and if you do that, you may find there's somebody else who who want the same thing that you want, even though they may think about doing it a different way.
So when people talk about Ms. Colvin, this is the story. Well, they didn't want to use her because she wasn't right. She wasn't the right, she had issues. They wanted somebody. I've heard all these different reasons why, describing that. Yeah, this happened 9 months before, but yeah, the respectable black folks didn't want to use a young girl.
All of that are things that came up long time after the fact. I was a lawyer, and I know what those facts are. And I did not determined not to file a suit on behalf of Claudette because, as some people said, she were expecting. Whether she was or was not a material fact to me. It's something I would take into consideration. But the reason we did not file the lawsuit for Claudette is because the community itself, there was a difference of opinion in the leadership of the community as to whether we ought to do it at this time. And a lawyer represents clients. And while Claudette would have been ready for me to have filed a case then, I would rather to have done with her case what I later did with Ms. Parks' case.
Folks, you can check out that Fred Gray interview on our YouTube channel, Blackstone Network app. It's a fascinating conversation. And again, condolences go out to Claudette Colvin's family.